one can expect them
Okay,
near.
now we need to hook this. Yep, move that up there. Okay.
They're making final preparations now for
Okay, your visors.
Neil to egress.
Yep.
Buzz Aldrin is performing final checks on the spacesuit and on the portable life
Your
support
back
system.
is up against the bird.
How difficult, I wonder, is it
And now
to
it's on top of the 50.
get into the
Forward, up.
position, backing
Now
out
you're
through
clear.
that hatch with that
Over toward me.
big life support system on your back?
It is quite
Stay
difficult
down.
because the hatch is only 32
You're left
inches
a little bit.
square.
Plenty of room.
It now sounds
You're lined up nicely.
that Neil Armstrong is
Toward me a little
egressing.
bit. Down. Okay, now you're clear. You're catching the first hinge, Boston. The what hinge? I move. Here, roll to the left.
This is Aldrin giving
now
him
you're clear.
instructions.
Yes.
Lined up on the platform. Move your left foot to the right a little bit. Okay, that's good. All left. Good. Okay, now I'm going to check gas here. Okay, you're not quite squared away. Pull to the right a little. Hair even. That's okay. That's good. Got plenty of room to your left. You're so close on the back.
Aldrin actually has to guide him out.
How am I doing? You're doing fine.
Yes, because of the small clearance between the hatch edge and the portable life support system.
What's going to happen when Buzz Aldrin goes out? He has to do it on his own, does he?
He will probably receive some guidance from Armstrong from outside the module.
Well, Armstrong will be
Okay,
filming
want
it
this
all,
bag?
of course.
Yep. Better. Okay, Houston, I'm on the porch.
So he's outside.
He is now outside the module.
Crouching on his knees, presumably, with his feet out.
Yes.
Must feel very ungainly.
Okay, stand by, Neil.
Columbia, this is Houston, 1 minute, 30 seconds to LOS, all systems go, over.
How long is it likely to take him to climb down the ladder?
Okay. Get a little slack?
Should be about 5 minutes. I think he's going to take it very carefully, rung by rung. 9 rungs.
And the bottom one's what, 2 feet 6 from the Earth, or rather the Moon, isn't it?
2 feet 6 from the pad. We still don't know whether the pad is on the level of the moon. Maybe a little lower, which will help.
Neil Armstrong on the porch at 109 hours, 19 minutes, 16 seconds.
So although man isn't yet on the Moon, he is at least outside the bug, on the porch, ready to go down the ladder.
Remains to be seen whether he'll stop for a mint julep.
Any more slides, bud? No, hold it just a minute. Okay. "25 minutes of PLSS time expended now." Okay, everything's nice and straight in here. Okay, can you pull the door open a little more? Right? Yeah. Okay. Did you get the main down? I'm going to pull it now.
Of course, one thing we've got to remember is that we
Yes,
hear
the
no
main came down,
sound
all right.
there in vacuo. Only their voices coming
Roger,
through the
we copy.
microphones in the
Standing by
helmets.
for your TED.
Houston, this is Neil, radio check.
Neil, this is Houston, loud and clear. Break, break. Buzz, this is Houston. Radio check and verified TV circuit breaker in.
So it looks as though we're going to get television pictures at any
Roger, TV
moment.
circuit breakers in. Base 5 clear.
Roger. And we're getting a picture on the
Now,
TV.
here are our pictures.
Okay, you had a good picture, huh?
There's a great deal of contrast in it, and currently it's upside down on our monitor, but we can make out a fair amount of detail.
Now, Eric, can you interpret that picture?
They're
Okay,
looking.
when you verify the position, the opening I ought to have on the camera.
Stand by.
I've now reversed it.
The camera is
Now we
looking
can
at
see
the,
him actually climbing down the ladder. His left leg, very slowly. Right
Okay, Neil, we
leg.
can see you coming down the ladder now.
Neil, we can see you coming. Okay, I just checked, getting back up to that first step. That isn't collapsed too far, but it's adequate to get back up.
Roger, we copy.
It's a pretty good little jump.
What he did then was to bring his left foot back up one rung to make sure that he could get back again before he committed himself to going down.
Buzz, this is Houston. F2, 1/160th second for shadow photography on the sequence camera.
Okay. I'm at the foot of the ladder. The limb footpads are only depressed in the surface about 1 or 2 inches, although the surface appears to be very, very fine-grained as you get close to it. It's almost like a powder. Ground mass is very fine.
Now we can see the shadow of Neil Armstrong.
Yeah, I'm going to step off the limb now.
Just about to step off the lunar module for man to put his first footstep on the moon proper.
That's one small step for man, one giant leap for mankind. As the surface is fine and powdery, I can pick it up loosely with my toe. It does adhere in fine layers, like powdered charcoal, to the sole and insides of my boot. I only go in small fraction of an inch, maybe an eighth of an inch, but I can see the footprints of my boots and the treads in the fine sandy particles.
Neil, this is Houston. We're copying.
And I suppose this is the most dramatic moment of the whole mission. He is actually standing on the moon, and man has imprinted his foot on the moon's surface. A footprint, presumably, it'll last there for a
There
million
seems to be
years.
no difficulty in moving around as we suspected. It's even perhaps easier than the simulations of 16G that we performed in various simulations on the ground. Absolutely no trouble to walk around.
At the moment, he has a piece of cord or wire in his hand. What is that, Eric?
Descent engine did not leave a crater of any size. It has about 1 foot clearance on the ground. We're essentially on a very level place here. I can see some evidence of rays emanating from the descent engine, but very insignificant amount. Okay, Buzz, we ready to bring down the camera?
I'm all ready. I think it's 2 miles squared away in good shape.
Okay.
Okay, you'll have to pay out all the LEC. That looks like it's coming out nice and evenly.
The line,
Okay,
the line is used for lowering the
hard for
camera
me to
to
see
the
that I
low
have good
surface.
footing. I'll work my way over into the sunlight here without looking directly into the sun.
Okay, it's taut now. Unofficial time on the first step, 109.2420.
Okay, I think you're pulling the wrong one. Okay, I'm ready to pull it down now. There was still a little bit left in the...
Okay, don't hold it quite so tight.
Okay?
Okay.
Neil Armstrong has now moved a little bit away from the bug to set up the camera.
Looking up at the lamb, I'm standing directly in the shadow now, looking up at Buzz in the windows. And I can see everything quite clearly. The light is sufficiently bright, backlighted into the front of the lamb, that everything is very clearly visible.
Okay, I'm going to be changing it up.
Okay.
There's a very curious effect here, as though he's moving entirely in slow motion. Presumably this is because he is getting used to this low G, is it, Freddie?
Yes. He'll also be taking things extremely carefully, so a lot of this will be exaggerated slowness on his part.
What is he doing now, Eric?
It is a little difficult to see, but in sequence he should now start to deploy the television camera at some distance from the module so that the egress of Aldrin and the subsequent activities can be observed.
I think, in fact, what he's doing is taking out a sort of butterfly net with which he picks up the contingency sample of lunar Earth to put in his trouser pocket in case they have to get back into the lunar module quickly. He's taking that out of the modularized equipment
Surgeon says
stowage.
that
Camera installed on the ICU bracket.
Surgeon says the crew is doing well. Data is good, crew is doing well.
I'm still in the LEC on the secondary struts.
I think we can see him beginning to scoop up that sample now.
This, of course, is the first thing he does after getting used to it, in case they have to take off in a hurry, because come what may, they're going to bring a bit of the moon back.
Pictures here.
It certainly looks like it now.
Roger, Neil. We're reading you loud and clear.
Neil, we're
Let's see, get some pictures and the contingency sample.
He's taking some photographs as well.
.35 and a half minutes of PLSS time expended now.
I don't think he'll move the camera from this position on the lunar module until shortly before Aldrin is due to come down, which ought to be in about 10 minutes from now.
I think that is correct, Colin.
Aldrin will have been taking still photographs and movies of him out of the lunar module window.
He's standing there just like a hiker with rather a large, heavy haversack on his back. He's slightly
Neil, this is
stooping.
Houston. To copy about the contingency sample, over.
I think one thing we should comment
All right,
on
you're
is
going to get to that just as soon as I finish these picture series.
how magnificent these pictures on BBC One are, in fact.
Yes, indeed.
I'm surprised at his mobility. His arm movements all the time seem to be extremely free.
This reflects on the rather brilliant design of the suit, presumably.
Yes.
It is perhaps evident from the comments just now from Mission Control that the astronaut here is exercising a little bit of individuality in taking photographs in advance of collecting his contingency sample.
I think this must indicate that he feels fairly confident. It is, of course, very useful to have photographs of the areas from which the samples are collected before they're disturbed.
Well, he's now moved so far away that we've lost him.
Okay, that's good.
Now, getting this sample, will he have to dig hard or just scrape it up? What will it be like, Lionel?
It looks as though the top couple of inches at least is very loose, friable material, and he should have no difficulty at all in scooping up quite sufficient for the contingency sample.
Are you able from these pictures yet, Lionel, to say anything about the moon's surface?
Sample is down, and it's
At the moment, not really, because the contrast is adjusted so that we can see the module and the astronaut clearly. And,
very interesting. It's a very soft surface, but here and there where I plug with the contingency sample collector, I run into very hard surface, but it appears to be very cohesive material of the same sort.
Is this what you expected?
yes, pretty well, yes. The top few inches only are very loose and friable, and the material compacts substantially at greater depths. As long as he scrapes the instrument along the top surface, it will be all right.
It has a stark beauty all its own. It's like much of the high desert of the United States. It's different, but it's very pretty out here. Be advised that a lot of the rock samples out here, the hard rock samples, have what appear to be vesicles in the surface. Also, I'm looking at one now that appears to have some sort of phenocryst.
Now, what does that mean, Lionel?
Houston, roger that.
Well, the presence of vesicles, of small holes in the surface rock, is by no means unexpected. This has been predicted from laboratory studies and also
Okay, the handle is off the...
observed in surveyor pictures of nearby rocks.
push it in about, 6 to 8 inches into the surface. Like it's pretty easy to... It is. It's, I'm sure I could push it in farther, but it's hard for me to bend down farther than that.
He is restricted in his movement on the suits, isn't he, Freddie?
Yes,
They
as
can
far
throw
as
so
any
far.
of that
Really
is
throw
concerned.
things a long way up here.
Perhaps one of his more important comments was the presence of phenocrysts in some of the rocks.
What are they?
These are inclusions, and of course indicate that the rock does have a substantial physical structure of its own, and is not just compacted surface material.
Did you expect this?
The answer is
That pocket open, but
4/5 yes, I think, on the
Yes, it
basis
is.
of what we've
It's not,
seen
up
from
against
surveyor
your shoes,
pictures.
so hit it back once more. Or more toward the inside. Okay, that's good.
This must be the most precious bit of rock ever
Yeah,
scraped
push down.
up.
Indeed, so.
Got it? No, it's not all the way in. Push it. Good. There you go.
opinion, the sample is in the pocket. My oxygen is 81%. I have no flags, and I'm in minimum flow.
This is Houston, Roger Neil.
So he's got one in the bag.
He's got it in the bag, yes. And everything's still going well.
Now, he's presumably out in the sun now, isn't he?
Yes, it's interesting. He hasn't commented yet
Okay, I
upon
got the camera going at 1 frame a second. Okay.
on the radiation. He did mention in the beginning that he wasn't going to look anywhere near the sun, so he must
And I've got 80%, no flags.
have the impression that it's very, very dazzling.
Are you getting a TV picture now, Houston?
Neil, yes, we are getting a TV picture. Neil, this is Houston. We're getting a picture. You're not in at the present time. We can see the bag on the LEC being moved by Buzz, though. Here you come into our field of view.
Now he's gone into the sun.
Well, let me move that over the
He's moving very quickly.
edge
Yes.
for you.
And he's come back into the
Okay, ready
shade.
for me to come out?
Yeah, just stand by a second. I'll move this over the handrail.
Seems to be doing this with great expertise.
I'm surprised he's moving as quickly as this.
He's moving about with very great confidence now, isn't he?
Yes.
And it sounds as though Buzz Aldrin is just about to egress, as you put it in
Okay.
your jargon.
All right, that's got it.
Indeed.
Are you ready?
All set. Okay, you saw what difficulties I was having. I'll try to watch your bliss from underneath here.
Yes, as you suggested, Neil Armstrong's going to give Buzz Aldrin instructions of how to get himself out through that 32-inch square hole. Now, Buzz Aldrin was to have come out 25 minutes after Neil Armstrong, so we're just about right, aren't we?
Yes, this part of the timeline is on schedule, and the most fantastic thing
Okay, your
is
bliss looks like it's clearing okay.
the incredible
Those are about to
mobility
come over the
of Neil Armstrong.
Now he's standing with the full glare on his
Okay,
right-hand
now
side.
drop your bliss down. There you go, you're clear.
Full glare of the sun.
And laterally, you're good. Got an inch clearance on top of your bliss.
He's standing with his feet about 18 inches
Okay,
apart.
you need a little bit of arching of the back to come down.
Now he's walked away to
Okay, you're right at
get
the
a
edge
better
of the
view.
porch.
Okay. Back in from... Small little foot movement. Porch. Arching of the back. Moment comes up and clears the bulkhead without any trouble at all.
Looks good.
I'm really surprised he moves around just like a man on earth.
time expended.
Quite incredible, isn't
Yes,
it?
it is.
You'd think he'd lived on the moon for a year.
I seem to recognise there a little bit more bounce than a man on
Neil,
Earth
this
would
is
have.
Houston. Based
He's a
on
little
your
bit
camera
more
transfer with the
spongy
LEC, do you foresee
in his
any
stride.
difficulties in SRC transfer over? Negative.
That's the sample return containers, the rock boxes that Capcom.
No, I want to back up and partially close that.
Why is he backing up and partially closing the hatch here, Eric?
That is
Making sure not to lock it on my way out.
that is perhaps to minimise
Really
the
good thought.
solar
That's our home for the next couple hours. We want to take good care of it.
input to, and also
Okay, I'm on the top step and I can look down over the RCU and landing gear pad.
to minimise contamination within the LEN.
It's a very simple matter to hop down from one step to the next. Yes, I found it to be very comfortable and walking is also very comfortable.
And Buzz Aldrin isn't having much difficulty either.
You've got 3 more steps and then a long one.
And here he comes. Coming down rather faster than Neil Armstrong did. Probably got a bit of confidence of seeing how easy Neil's made it.
Yes.
Okay, I'm going to leave that 1 foot up there and both hands down to about the 4th rung up.
This is Buzz Aldrin speaking.
There you go.
Yes.
Okay, now I think I'll do the same. A little more. About another inch.
Neil
There you go.
Armstrong telling him where his foot
That's a
is.
good step. Yep.
Yes, he's
That's a
practicing.
3-footer.
He's jumping up and down now,
Hmm.
and I must say he jumps up in the air with great
Beautiful
ease.
view. Isn't that something? Magnificent sight out here. Magnificent desolation.
Well, ballet on the moon should be very effective at 1/6 G. In fact, Buzz Aldrin came off 18 and a half minutes after Armstrong.
Looks like the secondary strut. Have little thermal effects on it right here, Neil. Yeah, I noticed that. Seems to be the worst, although similar effects are on all around. Spoiler is very, very fine powder, isn't it? Isn't it fine? Right in this area, I don't think there's much of any fine powder. Some clods together, it's hard to tell whether it's a clod or a rock. Notice how you can pick it out. Down, it bounces and then
Well, now we've been joined by another guest, Professor Sam Talansky from the Royal Holloway College at Englefield Green, who's just making himself comfortable, and he'll be ready to comment in a moment, I'm sure.
reaching down, fairly easy. Get my suit dirty at this stage. The mass of the backpack does have some effect in inertia. There's a slight tendency I can see now to backwards due to the soft, very soft texture. You're standing on a rock, big rock there now. Sure didn't. No, it didn't. Absolute no crater there at all from the engine. No?
Well, Professor Talansky
I
has just
wonder
come in.
if,
He's very interested to know
that
what
right
the
under
dust
the engine
situation is.
probe might have.
Would you like to fill him in quickly, Lionel?
Yes, of course.
Time like that.
It seems that the top few inches
Yeah, I think
is
that's a
very
good representation of our sideward velocity
loosely
of
packed
touchdown.
dust, and that the surface becomes much more compacted below this level.
Well, can I make some comment on this? I noticed that there was some comment when they were coming down to land that their engines were blowing up some dust. And this dust question has been a sore and thorny point for many years amongst people. Well, I myself never expected the dust to mean anything, for the simple reason that being no atmosphere, the fine dust particles would fall as fast as heavy rock. People seem to have missed this point. A lot of people seem to have missed this point. If they didn't, then old Aristotle was right. And he certainly wasn't right, you see. So that people were anticipating an awful lot of trouble from dust. I wasn't. They may well have blown up some dust, and I think it must have fallen back solid, not drifted down, but shot down as fast. The small dust must have shot down just as fast as the big, huge chunks of rock would have fallen.
They have in fact said that there's no crater visible beneath the cone of the engine, but there is a slight indication of some ray material, some small amount of dust which has fallen back.
Well, even if there had been dust and the dust was blown up, I don't think it was a hazard. In fact, they never occluded the windows. They never mentioned this. The whole dust story, I think, was a silly one myself from beginning to end.
Now we'll listen to what's coming over from the moon for a moment.
Fill up all the very little fine porises. They'll tend to slide over it rather easily. Neil Armstrong getting ready to move the TV camera now out to its panorama position. Traction seems quite good. Picture area.
And what is happening is that Armstrong is moving the camera across to the position which is going to be set up.
Balance in one direction and recovery is quite natural and very easy. And moving your arms around, Jack doesn't go up the surface. Not quite that light-footed. And I have the insulation off the mesa now. The mesa seems to be in good shape. You have to be careful that you're leaning in the direction you want to go, otherwise you slightly inebriate. Otherwise you have to cross your foot over to stay underneath where your center of mass is.
There's something curiously
Hey, Neil,
grotesque
didn't
in
I say
these
we might see some purple rocks?
hooded figures moving about in slow motion.
Very small, sparkly fragments are rock. They're like the sun in places.
I hear they said there's some small sparkling stuff. This is probably glassy tektites. I've been waiting for this.
Biotite.
Now these are these glass-like particles that appear on Earth sometimes and you think come from the moon, is that right,
No,
Sam?
no. I think they will be on the moon. I think the pieces of moon rock will have glass attached to them if there has been collision, or there may be little glass marbles all over the place. I mentioned this to Frank Bowman, and he said he was informing the men who went out to keep their eyes skinned for glass marbles.
No,
This is
you
exciting.
don't think down more than a quarter of an inch.
Biotite is a brown mica substance.
Okay, Houston, I'm going to change lenses on you. Roger, Neil.
They're switching lenses now on the television cameras.
Did you say you recognised biotite at sight?
He indicated that in fact he had
Life
recognized
support
biotite.
consumables still looking good.
Well, Freddie, they don't seem to be having too much trouble with heat and so on, although he's been up there some time now.
Well, they've been moving around in the shade quite a
Okay,
lot, I've
Houston, tell
noticed.
me if
They
get a new picture.
haven't been out in the direct
Neil, this is
sunlight
Houston, that's affirmative. We're getting a new
for
picture.
very
You
long.
can tell it's a
Been
longer
out of the
focal
shade of
length
the
lens.
module.
And for your information, all LEM systems are go. Over. For your information, all LEM.
So all's well on the lunar
I
module.
appreciate that. Thank you.
Have you any idea just what's going on at the moment? Eric?
No, I believe that the next activity will be, in fact,
Neil
to
is now unveiling the plaque that is.
deploy the
Roger, we got you four-sided, but back to one side.
lunar surface instruments and the instruments from EMESA.
Well, now I have some information for you. Armstrong stepped onto the moon
For
at...
those who haven't read the plaque, we'll read the plaque that's on the front landing gear of this LEM. There's two hemispheres, one showing each of the two hemispheres of Earth. Underneath it says, "Dear men from the planet Earth, first set foot upon the moon, July 1969 AD. It came in peace for all mankind." It has the crew members' signatures and the signature of the President of the United States.
That is the famous medallion being put on the surface of the moon. I was saying that we've got some information about the precise times. Armstrong stepped on the moon at 3 hours, 56 minutes, 20 seconds. That is 02:56:20 Greenwich Mean Time. And Aldrin stepped on the moon at 4 hours, 14 minutes, 50 seconds, or 3:03:14:50 GMT. These are these, I think, quite famous times in history.
Materials are getting dusty.
Now, having deposited the medallion, what's next? The United States flag?
Surface
Yes,
material,
the flag is next.
outery.
In fact, there's no...
I don't know how good your lens is, but if you could touches above.
No spot in the schedule for planting a flag, but this would be the obvious time to do it.
Very much like a very finely powdered carbon, but pretty looking. Do pull out some of my cable for me, bud?
It's pretty obvious that you need two men on the moon. They have to help each other a great deal, don't they? In silly little things like how to get out, where their feet are, and so on.
Houston, how close are you able to get things in focus? This is Houston. We can see Buzz's right hand. It's somewhat out of focus. I'd say we were focusing down to probably about 8 inches to a foot behind the position of his hand when he was pulling out the cable. Okay, how's the temperature looking there? Temperature of the camera is showing cold. I'm a little cool. I think I'll change phone.
Was that the first indication
I'm on intermediate now, Houston, and I show 3.78.
of
No
temperature
flags, 74.
problems? Did he say that he was
Houston,
feeling a
roger
little
out.
cold?
He was
Yes.
giving the camera temperature,
Yes,
wasn't
Oh,
he?
I see.
Yeah.
Mm.
And we'll probably need a little distance at back location. Television camera.
Well, the camera is now being set up. It's swinging about rather like somebody learning to take movies at the moment, but no doubt it'll settle in a second or so.
And Neil, let's look at the minus Y strip. The direction of travel there. Traveling from right to left. Right. So this one over here underneath the ascending for the probe first hit. Minus my probe first hit. I got plenty of cable. You got plenty more.
Now, this cable they're talking about, of course, is the connecting cable between the camera and the
Okay,
lunar
I think
module.
I got
Yes,
the end
indeed.
of it. Something interesting in the bottom of this little crater here. Maybe. Keep going. We got a lot more. Okay. Getting a little harder to pull out here.
The TV camera requires the use of the module transmitter and high-gain antenna in order to transmit the wideband signals.
And they're pulling it out as far away,
Stand on
presumably,
the
as they
ladder
can.
facing forward.
Yes.
The minus Y strut is the landing gear to your left.
Say I am, Buzz.
About 30.
40, 50 feet. Why don't you turn around and let them get a view from there and see what the field of view looks like.
Profile is very rugged.
You're backing into the cable. Okay.
And now we saw for a moment the lunar module, but he
Turn
lost
around
it.
to your right. Be better.
I don't want to go into the sun if I can avoid it.
That's right, Jim.
Now, Freddie,
Just leave it.
was that a joke or was that serious?
Walk around it.
Well, he sounded serious.
Mm-hmm.
Houston, how's that field of view going to be? Pick up the mesa far away? Good.
Well, now we can see the lunar module there.
Neil, this is Houston. The field of view is okay. We'd like you to aim it a little bit more to the right, over.
And obviously it's settled down perfectly, almost exactly vertical.
Okay, that's all the cable we have. All the way out. I'll start working on the shoulder.
A little bit too much to the right. Can you bring it back left about 4 or 5 degrees?
This is instructions from Houston, exactly how to aim the camera, which
Okay, that
of course
looks
hasn't
good,
got a
Neil.
viewfinder.
Hey, that looks good, Neil. Okay, now, think I ought to be farther away or closer?
Can't get too much further away.
Let's try it like that for a while. I'll get a couple panoramas with it here. Roger, you look okay as far as distance goes, Neil, and we'll line you up again when you finish the panorama. You're going too fast on the panorama sweep. You're going to have to stop for...
Now, what is happening now is they're swinging the camera around to look at the lunar landscape.
That's the first picture in the panorama. Right there. Roger.
Now then, Lionel, you're looking at the moon. Is that what you expected?
Yes, very much so, I think, for this area. As Armstrong said, we have a real mixture of all the usual features. Quite a large number of blocks of rock and the usual sprinkling of craters.
Well, we've got a beautiful picture, Neil.
At the moment,
Okay, I'm going to move it.
we can see mainly depression craters, which don't have very substantial rims. Camera's moving around now again.
It's usually argued that these blocks are not weather blocks.
Okay,
But
there's another good one.
this may not be so. There may have been a fierce atmosphere at one time. One theory is that the moon was captured by the Earth and in doing so tore off a very considerable
we got that
quantity of
one.
water from the Earth.
Mm-hmm.
This might mean, in fact, there could be life on the moon which was
Okay, now
Earth-like,
this one's right,
and there could
down
have been for
straight
quite
west.
an appreciable period later in,
And I want to know if
before
you
it
can
lost
see
its
an
atmosphere.
angular rock in the foreground. Roger, we have a large angular rock in the foreground and looks like a a much smaller rock a couple of inches to the left of it, over. Right, and on beyond it about 10 feet is an even larger rock that's very rounded.
Now what we're looking at now is a bit of the lunar landscape.
That rock is about, the closest one to you is about sticking out of the sand about 1 foot. It's about 1.5 feet long, and it's about 6 inches thick, but it's standing on edge.
And this looks a bit rugged. There's no smooth horizon here. And now he's swinging the camera again to have another look at another bit of the moon.
Okay, Neil, I've got the table out. Got a bag deployed.
We got this to you, Neil.
The horizon is very strange. It's both concave and convex.
They have said that they think they may have landed inside a fairly substantial crater.
Yes. Personally, I'd be delighted because I'm predicting diamonds near the craters.
Quite, yes.
And if they're near a crater, they might have some diamondiferous rock.
Pair of elongate craters, about probably the pair together is 40 feet long and 20 feet across, and they're probably 6 feet deep. We'll probably get some more work in there later.
So they've got a small crater there within walking distance.
Yes, a pair of small craters on those textures.
And now we're once more looking at the module and at presumably Buzz Aldrin moving about.
For a final orientation, we'd like it to come left about 5 degrees, over.
Instructions from Houston to swing the camera left so that they get the module more or less in the center of the picture. That's
Back
now
to the
being
right
down.
about half as much.
We've been very near disaster of those craters of any depth. We're very close to them.
Yes.
But in fact, they have landed on just about the smoothest bit of the moon that we've yet seen.
Okay, that looks good there, Neil. Yeah, that looks good.
Yes, the pair of craters close together, which we've seen, would have been quite disastrous if the footpad had gone into one of them.
1 hour, 7 minutes time.
Is this a tribute to Armstrong's skill, do you think, Eric, or is this a bit of luck?
I think it's a mixture of both. In view of the problems they were having during the landing, during the descent, it is unlikely that they could have selected this site without at least a small element of luck, but this in no way detracts from Neil Armstrong's skill.
Well, now we're seeing both men moving with a most curious gait at the moment,
Buzz
Freddie.
is erecting the solar wind experiment.
Yes.
Now, this solar wind experiment is, in fact, a sheet of aluminium foil on a stick. It sounds very grand, and it's going to be a very useful experiment, but for sheer simplicity, I should think nothing has ever beaten it.
Some of these small depressions.
Well, perhaps when Thales measured the height of the pyramids, he perhaps beat it just slightly. He just stuck a stick in the sand.
It's probably true, Sam. Well, they got one of those as well.
Picture showed when they pushed away a little bit, you could force transmitted through the upper surface of the soil in about 5 or 6 inches of bay. It breaks loose and moves as if it were caked on the surface when in fact it really isn't. I noticed in the soft spots where we have footprints nearly an inch deep that the soil is very cohesive and it will retain a slope of probably 70 degrees.
The soil's cohesive because the particles are charged. They must be charged from the radiation from the sun. There's no way why the particle charges will leak away because there's no atmosphere, so they're cohesive. I think this is the reason why they're cohesive. You can reckon that the soil particles are all electrically charged and they cohere together for that reason. This is my guess. It's probably a good guess, too.
That sounds very feasible, I must say, Sam. Something I'd never thought of before.
What are the chances of them picking up a charge?
Quite appreciable, and I should have thought one of the main hazards that these men are exposed to is radiation. radioactive radiation because the surface, having been exposed for millions of years without an atmosphere, ultraviolet, electron bombardment, proton bombardment, cosmic rays, may well be radioactive. And that may be a real hazard. We'll know when the stuff is brought back because this is one of the first checks. Is it radioactive?
Yes.
I don't think there's any hazard. The biological hazard I don't think is a genuine one. But a radioactive hazard I think is a real possibility.
I was thinking in terms of picking up a static charge. You know, in very,
yes,
very
but
dry...
it won't discharge. There's nothing for the spark to go. At least I don't think so. There's no breakdown. There's no atmosphere. And they'd have to pick up a very big voltage for a breakdown in a vacuum.
Well, how about when the two ships come together afterwards?
Yes, there's a possibility of a spark passing between the two. There is that possibility.
Could that be dangerous, Eric?
No, I would not think so. A spark passing between the two vehicles would not initiate any of the explosive or propellant devices.
What would happen is a spark would pass, the main vehicle would acquire a charge. That would be dangerous were it not for the fact that on re-entry it will lose that charge.
Yes, indeed.
So the fact it won't be charged when it comes down. It will create so much ionization around itself that it will lose that charge. Even if it picked up a very big charge, it would lose that on re-entry.
Well, we now see the two astronauts moving very slowly towards the camera.
They're shuffling, aren't they?
Shuffling in a sort of curious slow motion movement. There's no doubt that they are, so to speak, feeling their feet, because nobody's been quite sure whether you should walk or jump as though you're in a sack race. At the present moment, they seem to be doing a mixture of both.
I get the impression that they're afraid to overexert themselves and go too far because of the small gravitational pull.
Well, in the first few minutes we saw Armstrong moving quite quickly, but I suspect that, as you say, the initial enthusiasm has worn off and they're taking things quite carefully.
This question of radioactivity that Professor Talansky's brought up, how well is the suit insulated?
Armstrong's been on the lunar surface now almost 45 minutes.
With respect to particle radiation, the protection is minimal in that there is no metallic interweaving in the present suit.
The suit would be only protective against very, very soft radiation.
Well, it will be completely absorbing to alpha particles, that will be no worry. But beta rays and gamma rays would get in.
Oh, yes.
Columbia 9 gate, over.
Columbia, this is Houston, reading you loud and clear, over.
This is Houston reading.
I suppose we do have some upper limit on the intensity of gamma rays from the reference readings.
Well, I'm not sure about that, you see. I don't think the surveyors or anything of this can help because it might be extremely localized. And you might find one patch of the moon which is quite free and another patch which is very dangerous. I don't think you can draw any firm conclusions.
So you've got possibility of direct radiation plus radiation from the moon. Now, will they be monitoring this and checking it?
This I don't know. I know that they will, of course, very carefully monitor and check the samples.
They do carry dosimeters on their sleeves of the space suit.
Well, then they are checking this.
And now the Stars and Stripes is being stuck in the ground here.
There she goes.
Beautiful, just beautiful.
Now, which flag is this? The Stars and Stripes or the NASA?
The Stars and Stripes.
Well, let's listen to NASA and see what they've got to say about this. This is a big moment, of course.
It's a sort of fake breeze.
It won't go up.
In fact, the two men are fixing the flag up. Because, of course, there's no wind or atmosphere there, the flag has been made rigid so that it appears to be in a strong wind. Rather like one of those, if you like, paper flags that you have on a flag day, in a sense. The flag is taller than the men, quite a large flag itself, some 2 or 3 feet across. Now, of course, this is a traditional thing. When anyone goes anywhere for the first time, they put a flag there.
Yeah.
We did the same thing way back in 1953 when we climbed Mount Everest.
They appear to be having considerable difficulty in emplacing the flag. And in fact, Neil Armstrong did say a moment ago that it would not go in.
Yes, it's because it's on rock.
Well, there we are. It's stuck in and it's
They have
standing
made it.
there. And they're now going in a sort of curious quadrille away from it.
They seem to be able to walk backwards almost as easily as they can walk forwards, don't they?
I suspect that Buzz Aldrin is having his photograph taken now by
Yes, it
Neil
looks like
Armstrong
it.
alongside the flag.
It looks very like it.
Well, that's something for American history books in the future. And that's obviously just what's happening.
Have they taken the sample yet with the 1 foot sample?
Yes.
Yes, they
took
got
that
one in the bag.
They commented then on the difficulty of scraping into any great depth.
Yeah, well, this is, I can like to make an interesting comment on this because I happen to be involved in a further stage. The next plan, whether on the next, that is Apollo
Neil,
12,
this is Houston, radio check over.
or Apollo 13, if the number of 13,
Hi, Roger. Houston, live clear.
the intention is to drill a 100-foot hole in the rock with a diamond drill. And the preliminary experiments have already been done on this, and if you like, I'll comment on this later.
It seems a fantastic enterprise, and we'll certainly be interested later on, Sam, to
If you
hear
like, I'll
about it.
comment on it.
100-foot hole's quite
Yeah.
something.
Indeed.
Yes.
Well,
I
now
happen
the
to be
two men are-
involved personally in that particular 100-foot project, so I can say something about it.
Good. Now the two men are moving about in this odd slow-motion gait. They don't seem to be having much trouble balancing, Freddie. Did you expect them to?
Well, when they seem as if they're going to topple slightly, it's not very rapid, so it looks as if they have ample time for the body reflexes to take over and for them to readjust their feet.
Because in a sense they've got to learn to walk all over again.
Yes.
And this is the most complicated reaction with all sorts of servo controls we have.
There's no doubt that when they do walk, they walk with a very bouncing step.
They're using their arms too, as a tightrope walker does, for balance, aren't they?
Yes. They're all, well, it's almost running.
About 2 or 3 or maybe 4 easy paces can bring you to a fairly smooth stop. Direction. Like a football player, you just have to put out to the side and cut a little bit.
This is a quite wonderful scene with Neil Armstrong effectively running in slow motion.
So-called kangaroo hop does work, but it seems your forward ability is not quite as good.
He's trying to jump,
In the conventional, more conventional one, but after another.
trying out the various methods of locomotion on the moon. A kangaroo hop, which doesn't carry him forward as far as he expected it to. And it
As
seems...
far as saying what a main pace might be, I think one that I'm using now
The surface is very
would
rugged,
get rather tiring.
and that's shown
after
by the rugged shadow.
several hundred. But this may be a function of the student as well as
departure.
Tranquility Base, this is Houston. Could we get both of you on the camera for a minute, please?
Now, Freddie, he's running about gaily in the
Roger, I'd like to
sunshine.
get both of you on the field of view of the camera for a minute.
He said it might be rather fatiguing,
Neil and Buzz,
but
the President
they're
of the
obviously
United
not
States
having any trouble
is in his office now and
with
would like to say a few words to you, over.
And now we're going to hear President Nixon talking to them.
That would be an honor.
Go ahead, Mr. President. This is Houston out.
Hello, Neil and Buzz. I'm talking to you by telephone from the Oval Room at the White House. And this certainly has to be the most historic telephone call ever made. I just can't tell you how proud we all are of what you do. For every American, this has to be the proudest day of our lives. And for people all over the world, I am sure they too join with the in recognizing what an immense feat this is. Because of what you have done, the heavens have become a part of man's world. And as you talk to us from the Sea of Tranquility, it inspires us to redouble our efforts to bring peace and tranquility to Earth. For one priceless moment in the whole history of man, all the people on this Earth are truly one. One in their pride in what you have done, and one in our prayers that you will return safely to Earth.
Thank you, Mr. President. It's a great honor and privilege for us to be here representing not only the United States, but men of peace of all nations, and with interest and a curiosity and with a vision for the future. Honor for us to be able to participate here today.
And thank you very much, and I look forward, all of us look forward to seeing you on the Hornet on Thursday.
Look forward to that very much, sir.
United States,
Columbia,
talking to Neil
Columbia, this
Armstrong.
is Houston, over.
You made a comment about the heat.
Roger, I've got a P-22 auto-optics pad for you.
Roger, go ahead.
Roger, P-22, landmark ID, LEM, T1, 1102656. T2, 1103206.
What's all this, Eric?
3 miles south. Time of closest approach, 1103340.
This is information relating to the possible rendezvous should this be required.
Decimal 855. Trillion 46. Decimal 495. Roll 0. Pitch 250. Yaw 0. Over.
That is the readout from the command and service module.
Roger out.
Well, now, what we're seeing on the television
It's
now,
very interesting to note that when I kick my foot at material with no atmosphere here, just gravity. They seem to leave, and most of them have about the same angle of departure and velocity. Just where I stand, the large portion of them will impact at a certain distance out. There are several percentage, of course, that will impact different regions out, but it's highly dependent upon depth, initial trajectory upwards, where most of the priority of the particle comes down, like the terrain.
Roger, Buzz, and break, Columbia. This is Houston. When you track out of high gain antenna limits, request Omni Delta. Omni Delta, over.
Sam, while we got a moment.
I've noticed several times in going from the sunlight into shadow that just as I go in, I catch an additional reflection off the lens. Along with the reflection off my face onto the visor, makes visibility very poor just at the transition sunlight into the shadow. I essentially have so much glare coming onto my visor that shadow till helmet actually gets shadow, and then it takes a short while for my eyes to adapt lighting conditions inside the shadow area. Visibility, as we've said before, is not too great, but both visors up. We can certainly get what sort of footprints we have and the general condition of the soil. Then after being out in the sunlight a while, it takes watch it, Neil. Neil, you're on the cable. Okay. Yeah, lift up your right foot. Right foot. It's still, your toe is still hooked in it. That one? Yeah, it's still hooked in it. Come in. Okay, you're clear now. Thank you.
Instructions to him how to step over the cable.
Let's move that over this thing.
Neil Armstrong has the scoop for the bulk sample collection.
And now Neil Armstrong has picked up a thing that looks rather like a spade, I must say, with a long handle on it, and he is going to try and collect a large sample here. They want to collect up to 130 pounds, earth weight of course, of lunar material. The problem of the seeing is what you thought, isn't it, Freddie? That
Yes,
the glare is really difficult here.
I thought that...
The boot color of my boots have completely disappeared now into this I don't know exactly what color to describe this other than grayish cocoa color. Seems to be covering most of the wider part of the boot. Color that very fine particles.
Buzz, this is Houston. You're cutting out on the end of your transmission. Can you speak a little more closely into your microphone, over?
Into your microphone, over. Roger, I'll try that.
Beautiful.
Well, I had that one inside my mouth that time.
Sounded a little wet.
Neil's been on the surface an hour now. Buzz, not quite 20 minutes, less than that.
In general, time spent in the shadow doesn't seem to have any thermal effects. We still inside the suit. There is a difference, of course, in the coming radiation and helmet, so I think there's a tendency to feel a little cooler in the shadow than we have in the sun.
Columbia, this is Houston, over.
I should imagine that if they stood in one position for more than a minute or two, they could be rather uncomfortable.
1 hour and a half.
But they are moving around all the time, and turning and pirouetting.
What strikes me as interesting is that on Earth, with a long shadow like that, it's cold because of air absorption.
Yes, but there's no absorption.
There's no absorption there, so they're probably pretty hot, even in a long, glancing, low-down sun, so to speak.
Mm-hmm.
On Earth, the low sun is cold, but not there.
But if you watch them moving around, they are continually turning. And I haven't seen any one of them yet stand in one position in relation to the sun for any lengthy period.
They're warming up one side, cooling the other.
And he has remarked that even just as quickly as a matter of a few seconds going from the direct sunlight and to the shadow, he can feel it through all those insulation layers.
Columbia, this is Houston, over.
Now, Sam, they say there's no atmosphere there. Is this absolutely certain?
No, it's not certain. In fact, these men have got instructions to seal the sandbags, whether with or without material, very carefully. And one of the first things that will be done in the lunar receiving laboratory is to puncture the bags to see whether there was a lunar atmosphere. There may be a faint trace of an atmosphere, which will be collected and examined with a mass spectrograph, so that there may be a bit of atmosphere, and this is the way it will be looked for. It's probably a small one, but you see, all these craters that we're looking at may be blowholes, or a lot of them. And there may be gases coming up from below. We just don't know that. They may be drifting away, you see. But there may be a constant... And these funny rills that one sees, there may be a leakage. There may be a seepage.
But even if there is...
Continuous seepage.
Even if there is an atmosphere, there'll only be a few millibars.
Oh, yes. Very thin. Oh, I don't think it'll be that. I think it'll be less than that.
Less than that. Much less.
I think but you see, it may be very important scientifically if it's got argon or helium or something, especially if it's got argon in. Because from argon and the different isotopes, you can get an idea of the age.
Yes.
Isotope. And this is very, very important. If they can get a sample of argon from that suspected atmosphere, and argon's heavy and it will stay, but if they can get a sample of argon and do the isotope abundance ratio, they might get some indication of the age.
Down sun, zero phase, very light colored gray, light gray colored, like the halo around my own shadow, around the shadow of my helmet. Then as I look off across sun, the contrast becomes strongest in that the surrounding color is still fairly light. As you look down into the sun, a larger amount of shadowed areas looking toward us. The general color of the chromatic is darker than raw sun. Contrast is not as great. Surveying all the dusty area that we've picked up, considerably darker in texture now. I've picked up once. I imagine that this has been found by certain factors. That's a distinct surveyor. The same is true. I survey cross sun along the area that we're walking. General, is to the fact that there are footprints there. General terrain where I've been up out of this surface trail is generally of a darker contrast. Having color.
One point that came out, Freddie, was that the heat output from the men is exactly as predicted and they're in fine shape.
Oh, yes.
They don't seem to be doing so much now. Do you think they might be tiring?
I think they're just working very hard. They have an advantage, actually, in relation to this heat balance problem, in that the sun's rays are almost horizontal, and they can find shade. And I notice that they keep going backwards and forwards, and they're not in the direct sunlight all the time.
You can see Neil Armstrong bringing scoop.
The ram I'll be taking is about 30 to 40 feet out to plus. But, great.
Say again, which strut, please, Buzz?
So it seems the plus V strut.
Roger.
Right in this area, there are two craters. The one that's right in front of me now, as I look off in about the 11 o'clock position from spacecraft, about 30 to 35 feet across. And several rocks to boulders, 6, 8 inches across, different sizes.
Neil is filling the bulk sample bag attached to a scale. You can see him in the picture. Buzz is behind the lamb at the minus Z strut.
Well, as you say, Freddie, they're working very hard and collecting a jolly good bag of stuff.
Yes. I'd like to know more about the microphones they have.
You're directly opposite the ladder.
I don't hear any signs of any sound of their breathing at all, and from their speech, they don't seem at all distressed.
Do you know anything about the Max?
No, I'm afraid I don't.
But they're not talking like a person might talk if they're under great physical stress. Obviously, they're not finding this very difficult.
Well, their heart rate has been monitored at 100, which again is indicative of minimal stress.
Yes. It's all going extremely well indeed.
Well, I must say, it couldn't be better so far, could it? Everything has gone exactly on schedule. They've had
Neil's
no
been on the
troubles.
surface about an hour and 10 minutes now.
This looks as though Apollo 12 is going to be successful too, doesn't it?
Yes.
And that's followed by 12A, eh? After all, sailors are notoriously...
I'm now in the area of the minus Y strut. Taking some section photographs.
He's photographing where he's picking up the samples. This was an instruction, if they could do this. They were asked to do this if possible. This is very valuable to the geologist. If he has a sample and knows where it came from, this makes all the difference. And it looks as if this is what he's doing.
Well, judging by the fact that very few American hotels seem to have a 13th floor, I think it's probable there won't be an Apollo 13 mission.
Yeah, that's why I
Buzz
suggested
is making
12A.
his way around the lamb, photographing it from various angles, looking at its condition on all sides.
He is photographing, isn't he, where the site where he's picked up the sample.
And also he's photographing the module, I think, to see if any damage has been caused, because of course this module doesn't come
Neil's still
home.
occupied with the bulk sample.
This is one of the bits of equipment that's left behind, shot into solar orbit after a development cost of $2 billion.
1 hour, 40 minutes time expended on the PLSSs now.
This means they've got about another half an hour on the moon if they keep the schedule, isn't it?
Yes, right now they are running about 10 minutes behind the timeline.
Bulk sample is just being sealed.
They do have adequate supplies to complete the mission on the present timing.
So it looks as though they should do everything they're set out to do.
Yes, indeed.
They've done a lot more. They've probably had at least 100, if not 500 million viewers.
Yes. Well, I must say these pictures we're getting are absolutely remarkable, considering it's a very simple camera with a small aerial coming 250,000 miles, plus a few odd satellites to get it to us.
Don't forget there's no distortions in the atmosphere there. There isn't an atmosphere.
No, that's true.
We've got no fading or anything like that. Everything is advantageous.
Columbia, this is Houston. Go ahead, over.
Have they put the laser mirror up yet?
I did see a suspiciously small white object coordinates are.
Go ahead with the coordinates on the small white object.
Easy 0.37.6, but I clearly hit him, and it's right on the southwest rim of a crater. I think they would know it if they were in such a location. It looks like their lamp was just pitched up quite a degree. It's on the southwest wall of a smallish crater.
Well, Mike called.
Copy Echo decimal 3 and 7 decimal 6.
This is identification of location of objects they're picking up, I take it. Is that right?
No, this was the coordinates of a white object which was observed by Michael Collins from the Command and Service module.
Is this white object likely to be the lunar module or Luna 15?
Columbia, this is Houston. While I'm talking to you, LOS will be at 111, 1931. AOS 1120543.
Unless he had some visual aid in the form of a high-power telescope.
Yes.
Columbia, this is Houston. Did you copy LOS? AOS times, over. Copy. AOS.
Negative, Houston, you're broken. Disregard him. I got him off the flight plan.
Roger, out.
Oh yes, I meant just by the bare eye. Oh, the telescope, easily enough. A camera at 10 miles can spot 2 cricket balls next to each other. If he's 60 miles up, he easily picks up with a good camera, a meter camera.
Dog deflector that's mounted on quad 1 seems good bit more wrinkled. Right now on quad 4.
You're breaking up again, Buzz.
I say the jet deflector that mounted on quad 4 seems to be, the surface of it seems to be more wrinkled than the one that's on quad 1. Generally, underneath part of the lens seems to have stood up quite well to the, look at some pictures in the half part of the lens that illuminate the thermal effects much better than we could get them up here in the front. Roger out. Want to get some particular photographs of the bulk sample area, Neil? Okay.
We haven't seen the seismometer to measure the moonquakes yet. Is this one of the later things that comes out?
Yes, this is the next phase after the bulk samples have been collected.
And Houston, Buzz here, I'm showing 3.78 SI.
They've now been on the surface of the moon.
3%, no flags. Adequate. Light warming fingers.
Been on the surface for an hour and 3/4, is that right?
Yes.
And they're showing no signs of distress or strain.
But they're moving more slowly.
Roger, and Neil has 66%. O2, no flags. Minimum cooling, and the suit pressure is 382.
Houston, roger up.
What was that information, Eric?
This would indicate minimum stress since they are operating on the minimum cooling requirement from the portable life support system, and all readings are nominal.
Finished collecting and packing the bulk sample.
Buzz, this is Houston. Have you removed the close-up camera from the Mesa yet? Over. Negative, thank you.
So it does look as though this is all... It looks as though this is all just a little bit easier than was anticipated.
This may be so, but it is also a fact that the timeline is slipping behind schedule. So perhaps the ease is illusory.
Mm-hmm. Now these samples they collect go up in a conveyor.
Well, Roger, it looks like you're about a half hour slow on it. We're working on consumables, over.
We call the conveyor, I would call it the pull block.
The conveyor is in fact the hoist which was used to lower the camera to the surface. This is in fact a very simple block and tackle.
Neil and Buzz, this is Houston. To clarify my lab, your consumables are in good shape at this time. The 30 minutes reference was with respect to the nominal timeline, over. Roger, I understand that.
Do you think, Eric, that they'll be able to stretch their time half an hour to catch up, or will they have to leave something out?
They have an adequate reserve to stretch the timeline by half an hour. However, it may be that the exertions will prove to be the limiting factor. What do you think, Freddie?
I think that may be true. I notice now that they're not talking as much.
Mm-hmm.
They will fatigue fairly rapidly under these conditions.
Freddie, is there any possible danger they might faint up there?
Oh, no. That's one thing that couldn't happen to them, because it requires a fairly strong gravitational force to produce the necessary pooling of blood in the body, in the lower limbs, to produce a faint. So with the low gravitational field, there's one thing you can't do on the moon, and that is faint.
Sounds very strange.
Neil's been on the surface now slightly over an hour and 20 minutes.
Well, that gives us a new time check, 1 hour and 20 minutes.
Don't note any abnormalities in the limb. Quads seem to be in good shape. The primary and secondary struts are in good shape. Antennas are all in place. There's no evidence of problem underneath the limb due to either the engine exhaust or drainage of any kind.
Just like a motorist, he's looked under the car to see if it's leaking, and it's not, in fact.
Roger up. It's very surprising, very surprising lack of penetration of all four of the foot pads. I'd say if we were to try and determine just how far below the surface they would have penetrated, you'd measure in 2 or 3 inches, would you say, Neil?
At the most, yeah. But my strut there is probably even less than that.
All right, great job.
I think the significant thing
I got a
is that
picture of the bus-wide strut taken from near the descent station. I think we'll be able to see a little bit better what the ripple effects are.
I think the significant thing is that nothing
Seems to be
unexpected
quite
has
minimal.
happened.
Yes.
Which really suggests their planning has been nearly perfect.
There were some warnings, weren't there, before they descended?
Yeah, but they were only small things in each case.
One picture taken at the right rear of the spacecraft, looking at the skirts of the descent stage. So a slight darkening of the surface color, a rather minimal amount of radiating or etching away or erosion of the surface. And now on descent, both of us remarked that we could see a large amount of very fine dust particles moving out. It was reported beforehand that we would probably see an outgassing from the surface after actual engine shutdown, but I recall I was unable to verify that.
This question of the cocoa colour that came up, that's rather unexpected, isn't it, Lionel?
Oh yes, I think so. Yes, the Overall, the colour of the moon's surface is very slightly on the red side of a neutral grey, but only very slightly so. And the variations in colour between different areas are generally quite small.
It's a wonderful achievement, you know, to have produced spacesuits that have enabled them to move around on such a planet in almost a pure vacuum without any great discomfort. And it has taken years upon years of development.
Yep. I think you're right.
Well, at the present moment, we've nothing to describe on our picture because all we can see is the lunar module and the American flag. Both men have totally disappeared out of the range of the camera.
The tasks which they're performing, of course, are very important to the primary objective of this mission, which is to acquire as much data as possible through photography and samples about the geology of the lunar surface.
To be technical, the selenology.
The selenology. Relative to the question of
minus Z set now. Area up there, we're taking the bed will take very little force of impact that we actually had.
Well, now, while we've got a moment, Sam Telensky, you think they might find some diamonds there, don't you?
It's a bit doubtful. That location is not very likely to be diamondiferous. My idea is that
Go ahead, bud.
Try to get some close-up pictures of that front.
Well, carry on, Sam. They stopped off. No, they haven't. They're back.
Stop and take a photograph of something and then want to start moving again sideways. Quite a tendency to start doing it with just gradual sideways hops as you start getting momentum.
Roger.
Can you see us underneath the lamp over at the SEQ bay, Houston?
Yes, indeed, Buzz. We can see your feet sticking out underneath the structure of the LEM descent stage.
Okay, I'm just on the other side of the...
now we can see you through the structure of the minus Z secondary strut.
The SEQ bay contains the scientific experiments to be left on the surface of the moon. The laser, reflector.
They're open, and it looks like they're going to stay up without any problem.
Columbia, this is Houston. We're about to lose you on the Omnis. Request high gain antenna, react mode, pitch 20, yaw 135, over.
Gonna pick an area, Neil.
Make that yaw 175, Columbia, yaw 175 on the high gain.
Corelli's locked up on the high gain, Houston.
Roger out.
The surgeon says everything looks fine.
Well, back to these diamonds for a moment, Sam.
Well, on Earth, in the very, very richest ores of diamonds which come from deep mines, the...
An hour and a half of lunar surface time for Neil Armstrong.
Mm-hmm.
The concentration is 1 in 25 millions. That means you get a carat, which is 1/5 of a gram, out of 5 tons of rock. If this sort of concentration happened on the moon, there wouldn't be a dog's chance of bringing anything visible back, because if you 1 carat, which is not very much, 5 tons. But when you look at diamonds which are produced by explosive impact, by shock, this is a very different story. You can get a carat out of a pound of iron.
Houston, the passive seismometer has been deployed manually. Roger.
If you have carbon enclosed in iron and you subject it to shock, you can convert that carbon to diamond, and you can get a carat out of about a pound of iron. Now, if there is carbon on Moonwalk, and around the lips of craters, which are, if those
They've
craters...
been on the portable life support systems for 2 hours now.
If those craters are produced by impact shock, then around the lips there may be quite a lot of diamond. It'll be dirty, sort of impure, tiny stuff, but there may be quite a lot. If you think of 1 carat per pound, bring back 100 pounds of rock, there may be quite a lot of diamond in there.
And the manual deployment of the
It won't be working yet.
cubed little spring that's at the end of the string pulled off of the pit fin. Now, however, I was able to reach up and get hold of the pit fin and pull it loose. So it'll be deployed manually also. Roger.
Well, they're just getting the equipment they're going to leave behind down on the moon. Are they going to look out for diamonds, Sam?
Well, I've been appointed a principal investigator to examine the stuff to bring back for diamond. So
And the
that
panorama is complete, and up the limb, 730 position at about 60 feet.
They're busy getting this equipment out on the moon. This is the laser equipment to reflect beams back from Earth so we can measure the distance of the moon very precisely, and a series
That's
of...
Neil Armstrong to the left of the screen. By that doors are closed and locked.
series of seismometers to measure moonquakes.
Have you got us a good area picked out? Well, I think right out on that ride.
Well, now the time is now precisely 5:30, and this is the time we normally come on the air. So at this point we're going over to John Dunn for the news.
Well, man's first steps on the moon. A little over an hour and a half ago, Neil Armstrong edged his way out of the lunar module and took his first cautious walk across the moon's surface. For the latest news, here's Jim Biddulph.
It was just 3 minutes and 40 seconds before 4 o'clock this morning that Neil Armstrong became the first man to set foot on the moon. About 20 minutes later, he was joined on the moon's surface by Buzz Aldrin. The decision to make the moonwalk several hours earlier than originally scheduled was taken after the lunar module Eagle had made a perfect landing at 18 minutes past 9 last night. It came to rest about 4 miles from a planned landing site in the Sea of Tranquility. Both Armstrong and Aldrin are still working on the moon's surface, collecting samples and setting up instruments. Television cameras are relaying back to Earth pictures of them at work and showing the moon's surface as bleak and apparently barren, dotted with rocks and craters. The astronauts are expected to stay on the moon for another hour and a quarter before going back into Eagle. They have already spoken to President Nixon since they began their moonwalk and received his congratulations.
Well, congratulations, in fact, have been streaming in from all over the world. The Pope spoke of the new bounds of human existence and a new destiny for mankind. Mr. Wilson described it as the most historic scientific achievement in the history of man. The West German Chancellor, Dr. Kiesinger, sent a telegram of congratulations to President Nixon. Millions of people watched the landing on television or listened by radio, and American embassies in many countries were deluged with phone calls of good wishes. The Russians put their own moon flight, Luna 15, at the head of their news bulletins and gave reports of the American landing without comment. The Chinese appear to have made no mention of it at all so far. In the Middle East, Arab radio stations interrupted the news of the latest clashes with the Israelis to report on the moon landing. There's been no further news of Luna 15 since last night, when the Russians said it had swung into a new orbit only 10 miles from the surface of the moon. At Houston in Texas, the site of the American ground control operation, there's been a demonstration against the space effort. About 50 women and children took part in a sit-down in protest against spending money on exploring space while people went hungry on Earth. Now, the rest of the news. The Egyptians say yesterday's heavy engagements along the Suez Canal represent a very serious escalation of the fighting. The Israelis had launched complete warfare, unquote, sending wave after wave of planes, of which 19 had been shot down. The Israelis say their attacks were in response to ceaseless artillery activity by the Egyptians. 11 British birdwatchers and a 4-month-old baby have been rescued from Great Blasket Island off the Kerry coast by the Valencia lifeboat. They'd been without food for 3 days. The boat that was meant to collect them had failed to appear. Finally, cycling, the Tour de France was won by Eddy Merckx of Belgium with an overall lead of 17 minutes 54 seconds. The highest-placed British rider, Derek Harrison, finished 32nd. That's the news now. Today's weather forecast here on Earth. Northern and northwest Scotland will be mostly cloudy with occasional rain or drizzle. Other parts of Britain will be generally dry, and central and eastern areas will have sunny spells. Western districts will have rather a lot of cloud with patches of hill or coastal fog and a little drizzle at times. The outlook for Tuesday and Wednesday, little general change. And as far as the ships are concerned, no gale warnings in force at this moment for coastal waters. Well, we've been here all night in the Apollo studio. Breakfast special is becoming Moon Special this morning. We're staying with the voices of the astronauts, speaking live to us from the surface of the moon on this historic morning. Your guide is Arthur Garrett and his team of experts.
Well, let me tell you straight away what the weather is on the moon. In the sun, it's 157 degrees centigrade, and in the shade, it's minus 173 degrees centigrade, so quite a variation.
The seismic experiment over now, and I'm aligning it with the sun. I'm having a little bit of difficulty getting the beam to go in the center. Wants to move around and around on the outside.
Well, now what is happening is they're setting up the 2 experiments which are going to be left behind. And we, of course, are listening to the talk from the astronauts and Houston Control Center. And I think the experiment they're setting up at the moment is the laser reflector.
I'm having too much success in leveling the PSE experiment.
They're actually trying to level the seismometer just at this moment.
With Dr. Lionel Wilson, to any new listeners here, it's the seismometer. This is the thing that's going to measure meteorites hitting the moon, and at the same time measure any moonquakes there might be. This piece of equipment will be left there and will radio back its information, and it has in fact got a nuclear heater in it to make sure that the thing doesn't freeze up under these extreme conditions on the moon. Now I've got Eric Burnett here from TRW Systems in Redondo Beach, California. Is this a piece of equipment you've had anything to do with, Eric?
No. Specifically, this was developed by another company, and essentially, and this is the problem at the moment, it is an extremely sensitive, a set of extremely sensitive pendulous instruments which need to be leveled very precisely.
Installed, and the bubble's level, and the alignment appears to be good.
Well, as you said, Eric, they've lined it up.
Roger out.
Hey, you want to take a look at this BB, see what you make out of it?
I'm surprised they have it as near the takeoff point. It's very sensitive. It might easily be disturbed when they take off.
This is Professor Samuel Talansky. This is a point, Sam, isn't it? They got it very closely.
I'm very surprised. I should have thought they would get as far away as possible with that particular instrument.
And the reason for that, Sam, is that the radius of operation for this first mission has been limited
Think you're right.
in order that
I believe it is.
the astronauts
I don't
can
think there's any hope of using this leveling device to come up with an accurate level. It looks to me as though the cup here that the BB is in is now convex instead of concave, over.
Roger 11, press on. If you think it looks level by eyeball, go ahead.
Okay.
Sam Talensky, how does a spirit level behave in 1/6 G?
Oh, I don't know.
The bubble they're discussing is on a leveling device on the...
I should have thought it would be necessary to have a pretty low viscosity liquid.
Now, one other expert we have here is Dr. Freddie Latham, an aerospace doctor. Now, he was somewhat worried earlier on as to whether they would be able to withstand the high and low temperatures with their pressure suits. Now, in fact, Freddie, their suits are rather better than you'd hoped, aren't they?
They're doing very well indeed. They have made some comment
There you go.
that they can detect very quickly between light and shade.
Hey, whoa, stop. Back up.
In other words, when they move from the direct sun's rays into the shadow.
Houston, as I was facing the PSC, the right-hand solar array deployed automatically. The left hand, I had to manually spinning bar at the far end.
They can detect movement from light to shadow very quickly.
All parts of the solar array are clear of the ground now.
Buzz, this is Houston. Understand you did successfully deploy both solar arrays, over.
Well, as you put it, it's like stepping from a furnace into a super deep freeze instantaneously, isn't it?
Yes, but
And there isn't any way of telling whether that's lined up.
neither of the
That gets
men
in the way. Maybe I could get down here.
have shown any sign of physical distress at all so far, which is very heartening and gratifying indeed.
I should have thought the main source of complication is the visor.
Yes.
Because the light gets in there, and there's an awful lot of light out there, it can raise the temperature very quickly.
Mm-hmm.
It's a greenhouse. Light gets in, heat doesn't get out. Most of the energy of the sun is light, not heat.
They have mentioned a problem of glare, and but at the moment they've been working so hard and efficiently and well, and there haven't
Neil,
been
this is Houston, over.
any complaints whatsoever from them.
The glare problem surprises me because there are filters
Roger, we've been looking at your
available.
consumables, and you're in good shape. Subject to your concurrence, we'd like to extend the duration of the EVA 15 minutes from nominal. We will still give Buzz a hack at 10 minutes prior for heading in. Your current elapsed time is 2 plus 12, over.
There are filters which are optical filters which become more absorbing as the light increases.
Roger.
Yes.
I'm surprised they haven't got those.
Well, we've just heard from the doctor at Houston that they're in such good shape they're going to extend the time on the moon by another 15 minutes, which confirms what you say, doesn't it, Freddie?
Yes.
212 is the time expended on the PLSS.
This is Houston. If you're still in the vicinity of the PSC, could you get a photograph of the ball level, over?
I'll do that, Buzz. Right, we'll get a photograph of that. Houston, what time would you estimate we could allow for the documented sample, over?
This special glass you were talking about, Sam, when I was in Las Vegas, I bought some dark glasses, which vary in colour depending upon the amount of light on
The
them.
ball is right in the middle now.
Now, these are the things you're talking about.
Yes, yes.
Take a picture before it moves.
The brighter the light, the more absorbing.
Well, as these only cost, as far as I remember, 99 cents, it does seem surprising that they haven't got something like this.
I am surprised.
We're estimating about 10 minutes for the document sampling. Over.
You know, it's funny in a way. There's been years and years of discussion and debate about the advisability of putting men on the moon. I think what we've seen so far is the extreme value of putting a man on the moon. He hasn't appeared to be really handicapped. He's worked
Columbia,
well.
this is Houston, over.
And this has been...
Roger, I'd like you to terminate charging battery Bravo at 111 plus 15, over.
Well, it's much more expensive to put a man on the moon than to
Yes,
put a
but this has
machine
been a complete justification. Because
Roger.
they're two of the finest computers one could have had on the surface of the moon, both from the point of view of their comments and what they've done.
Built by relatively unskilled labour, too.
Yes.
Well, a computer has no sense. The men have got sense.
I'm intrigued that you say this, Freddie, because when I rang you up and asked you to come on the programme, you said, well, one thing I must make clear is I don't agree with sending men to the moon. You've changed your mind, haven't you?
I have changed over the last few hours.
Buzz, this is Houston. You've got about 10 minutes left now prior to commencing your EVA termination activities, over.
No computer could have done what they've done.
No.
Now, Eric, do you think with this extension of the 15 minutes they'll complete their schedule?
Yes, it appears that they have made up time in the deployment of the seismometer and the laser reflector. The remaining task was discussed a few moments ago, and that was to collect documented samples. And with the allowed 10 minutes for that activity, they should come in comfortably within the extended time allowed for EVA.
I get the impression they're going to leave a terrible lot of litter behind, aren't they?
Well, one thing that hurts me is they're going to leave about 250 pounds of camera behind to save weight.
Not to mention these very effective spacesuits.
Tranquility Base, this is Houston. The passive seismic experiment has been uncaged, and we're observing short period oscillations in it, over.
Well, now let me just say that we are listening to Moon Special because the walk was early, and the time now is precisely 5:45.
Neil Armstrong has been on the surface now about an hour and 50 minutes.
Well, now, to anyone who's just joined us, let me say that the walk started when Armstrong stepped onto the moon at 3:56 and 20 seconds this morning. Buzz Aldrin joined him at 4:14:50. Things have gone so well that they have extended the time that they're going to spend on the moon by 15 minutes, and it looks now as though they'll be able to meet their schedule of all the things that they had to do on the moon, the various experiments, collecting the samples, and so on and so on. At the present moment, we're getting no information coming over from the astronauts, just for a minute or so, although we've been having crosstalk all the time. Everything's going so well that there seem to have been no snags of any kind whatsoever. And we have seen Armstrong and Aldrin dancing about on the moon, experimenting with this new environment, just like children who've gone onto the beach for the first time. And at the present moment, we can see one of the astronauts leaping around with one of his sample collecting devices. proudly between them, the American flag is standing up. One of the first things that they did was to plant this. Actually, the very first thing was to collect what are known as contingency samples. This was just in case they had to take off in a hurry, that they at least would bring a bit of the moon back.
In the foreground, Buzz Aldrin is collecting a core tube sample.
Now, a core tube sample is that you have a thing rather like an apple core on a giant scale.
I hope you're watching how hard I have to hit this into the ground to the tune of about 5 inches, Houston.
And what he does with this is to clout it with a hammer and bring back a sample 5 inches deep and an inch or two across of the moon. This is of great value to geologists. Lionel, would you like to comment on this?
Yes.
It almost looks wet.
It's of great significance to know the extent to which the surface material is compressed with depth.
Got it, sample.
Well, he's managed it. He's got his core sample out.
Good.
Wait a minute. Yeah, cut the cable again. Neil, Buzz, this is Houston. We'd like you to hear right. Turn to your right. Not clear? Not quite. Neil, this is Houston. We'd like you all to get 2 core tubes and the solar wind experiment. 2 core tubes and the solar wind, over.
They've asked for the 2 core tubes to be taken and the solar wind experiment to be collected. This, as we explained earlier, is just about the simplest experiment you can imagine. In principle, you have a stick and a bit of aluminium foil. The solar wind consists of atomic particles which are shot out from the sun, and it's hoped that these will be embedded in the aluminium foil. They're going to be brought home, and then they go to a university in Switzerland for analysis.
Core tubes provide material.
Get the next one. Maybe you can turn away the box a little bit. Yeah, I'll take care of it.
Now, how much longer have they got on the moon, Eric? Can you calculate this? They went on at 3:56:20.
Well, Aldrin is due to return to the lunar module in 5 or 6 minutes from now. There may possibly be an extension to his time on the lunar surface, but Mission Control did request that he return within the next 10 minutes, and that was about 5 minutes ago.
Now, Freddie, how much monitoring are they doing on these from a medical point of view? They're taking heartbeats, are they? What else?
As far as I know, the major monitor is heart rate. They can tell a great deal about the condition.
You have approximately 3 minutes until you must commence your EVA termination activities, over.
Tell a great deal about the condition of the man from his heart rate.
So it's 3 minutes to go now, is it?
This is before Buzz
Columbia,
Aldrin.
this is Houston. Approximately 1 minute to LOS, over. 1 minute.
Aldrin must, in about 3 minutes' time, begin his return and entry.
Commencing your sweep on the backside this fast? If so, we'll disable uplink to you while we're talking to the LEM, over.
And he will be followed approximately 20 minutes later by Neil Armstrong.
Houston, were you able to record in a documentary way where the 2 core tube samples were taken?
Now, Lionel, this is important to know exactly where these samples came from, presumably, is it?
Well, yes, indeed. Because the part of the sample which came from the surface can then be...
They're right in the vicinity of the solar wind.
Uh-huh. the condition of the topmost part of the sample can be related to the appearance of the surface, of course.
Core tubes and the solar wind. Anything else that you can throw into the box would be acceptable.
This is real beachcombing on a grand scale, isn't it?
Determined to bring back as much as possible.
Sam, do you think you've got any diamonds?
Well, the diamond will only be in a fairly biggish material which acts as a heat sink, because the shock wave, you see, converts the graphite to diamond. Through high temperature and high pressure, but the temperature's got to be taken away, otherwise it reconverts back again. So there's got to be a heat sink. Therefore, it must be in a fairly biggish rock. And I don't know what they've got. It won't be in the soil.
Retrieving the solar wind experiment.
Now we're watching Buzz Aldrin. He's taking this little piece of aluminium foil and carefully rolling it up. This really simple experiment. And this will go back for stowage in the lunar module.
Typical of the amazing precision of this whole mission, if indeed Neil Armstrong returns to the lunar module in 20 minutes' time, they will be exactly on schedule on the timeline which was laid down for their lunar walk.
Buzz, this
Quite
is Houston.
remarkable.
It's about time for you to start your EVA closeout activities.
Well, and Buzz Aldrin gets his orders to go back at just 6.5 minutes to
They've
6.
been on their life support system. On their life support systems, 2 hours and 25 minutes.
2 hours and 25 minutes, so they have theoretically got another hour and a half's worth of oxygen without going on to the emergency supplies. Freddie, when they get back in the module, do you think they'll sleep all right?
I'm sure they'll sleep after this.
Even sleep standing?
I should imagine that they're still at a far more efficient state now than they
Neil
would
appears to
be.
be picking up rocks to the right of the screen.
I think if they delayed their moonwalk. Nevertheless, I'm quite sure that they will have the normal reaction following any very exciting adventure once they do get back inside.
One can sleep standing.
Neil and Buzz, this is Houston. I'd like to remind you of the close-up camera magazine before you start up the ladder, Buzz.
Reminding you not to leave anything behind.
Got that over with you, Neil? Now that close-up camera's underneath the mesa, I'll have to pick it up with the phone. And I'm picking up several pieces of really vesicular rock out here now.
Now, what were you saying, Sam?
I was saying, you can sleep standing. My father told me tales when I was a boy that when he was in the army and was doing guard duty, he slept standing regularly.
I don't think we'll have time.
Well, I heard a story of a gentleman who worked in a certain museum that should be nameless that learned how to go to sleep looking through a microscope.
Let's press on with getting the close-up camera magazine and closing out of the sample return container. You're running a little low on time. Roger.
Sibelius used to go to sleep whilst lecturing. It's usually the other way around, you know. Audiences sleep, but Sibelius always fell asleep whilst lecturing.
Well, that allows me to tell a story that I wasn't going to
We
say
want to
in
keep
front
a
of
good
you.
margin in those portable life support systems.
This was about the university professor who said, last night I dreamt I was lecturing to my students, and I woke up and by God I was. And now they're busy packing things away.
The reason for maintaining a very adequate margin on the
Can you quickly stick this in my pocket, Neil, and I'll head on up the ladder.
on the supplies in the portable life support system is that they are not quite sure on this first mission how long it will take them to actually re-enter the module. There should be no problem, but one can not be quite sure.
When they re-enter the module, do they seal it and fill it with air? Or do they keep their suits on?
There is an
Hold it right there. Okay, let the pocket go. Stop close. Got it. Okay. Adios, amigos. Hey. Anything more before I head on up, Bruce? I think it is. Head on up the ladder, Buzz. Head on up, Buzz.
Now we see Buzz starting to climb the ladder, with Neil Armstrong lurking by in case he can help. But the confidence these men have got in the last hour or so on the moon is fantastic. He's going up that ladder almost at a run.
Right above the horizon on the right is a phosphorus spot from the TV converter in the Park Station in Australia.
You were asking what the procedure is here. It's a highly complex one. They pressurize, change their suits, depressurize, throw out the things they don't want, repressurize again, and then eventually lift off.
It's funny, but seeing them get ready to make their departure, watching from behind this television camera, which is focused on the module, one almost feels like saying, "Hey, wait for me."
Very much so.
I think we'll feel quite sad as we watch the liftoff.
Yes.
Now, Buzz Aldrin has in fact gone aboard, apparently with no trouble at all.
Reach this hook that's hanging over here. You might entertain the idea of sending up the second one that way.
Now, Aldrin was on the moon for 1 hour and 33 minutes. No, sorry, correction, 1 hour, 43 minutes.
Oh, well. Better now.
Neil Armstrong will now start.
Okay, I'm heading on in. Okay. And I'll get the LEC already.
Will now start feeding the samples and equipment to Buzz Aldrin using this rather crude hoist to haul up the various pieces of equipment.
Neil's been on the surface a few minutes longer than 2 hours. Buzz, approximately 20 minutes less than that.
Neil, this is Houston. Did the Hasselblad magazine go up on that sample return container also?
Well, now with the time at precisely 6 o'clock, Colin Riak is here and he's going to give us an update on what's been happening, and after that we're going to hear a recording of man stepping onto the moon, which happened at 3:56 this morning. Colin.
Man set foot on the moon at 3:56 and 20 seconds this morning. The man was Mr. Neil Armstrong, aged 38, commander of the United States moon mission called Apollo 11. It happened nearly 3.5 hours earlier than the world had expected, but the world stayed up and watched and listened as the historic first steps on the sandy surface of the moon were made. The world heard it like this 2 hours and 4 minutes ago.
At the foot of the ladder, the LEM footbeds are only depressed in the surface about 1 or 2 inches, although the surface appears to be very, very fine-grained as you get close to it. It's almost like a powder. Ground mass is very fine. Yeah, I'm going to step off the LEM now. That's one small step for man, one giant leap for mankind. As the surface is fine and powdery, I can pick it up loosely with my toe. It does adhere in fine layers, like powdered charcoal, to the sole and sides of my boot. I only go in small fraction of an inch, maybe an eighth of an inch, but I can see the footprints of my boots and the treads in the fine sandy particles. There seems to be no difficulty in moving around as we suspected. It's even perhaps easier than the simulations of 16G that we performed in various simulations on the ground. Absolutely no trouble to walk around. The descent engine did not leave a crater of any size. It has about 1 foot clearance on the ground. We're essentially on a very level place here. I can see some evidence of rays emanating from the descent engine, but very insignificant amount. Okay, Buzz, we ready to bring down the camera?
I'm all ready. I think it's 2 miles squared away in good shape.
Okay.
Okay, you'll have to pay out all the LEC. It looks like it's coming out nice and evenly.
Buzz Aldrin, 39 years old and pilot of the lunar module Eagle, which had lowered them to the landing site in the Sea of Tranquility at 18 minutes past 9 last evening, followed Armstrong down the 9-rung ladder onto the moon 20 minutes later, just after 4:15. Until a few minutes ago, they were still on the moon, deploying the scientific experiments, taking movie and still pictures and collecting samples, just after 2 hours after Armstrong stepped onto the moon. They're just re-entering the lunar module for what the world is likely to consider a well-earned sleep after the exertions of the last 18 hours. A sleep which they denied themselves before their activity on the lunar surface, preferring to get out onto the mysterious lunar landscape rather than rest for 4 hours where they stood in the close confines of the lunar module. While on the moon, the astronauts moved with surprising agility, even walking backwards without trouble, although they were wearing suits and life support packages equal to their own weight of 11 stone 11 pounds. But in lunar gravitation, only 1/6 that on Earth, this meant they weighed, fully loaded, only about 4 stone. The TV camera fixed to the descent stage of the lunar module and later moved 30 or more feet from it showed the astronauts going about their tasks, running and jumping, kicking at the strangely sticky lunar soil, and pointing out features of the landscape to a television audience in some 33 countries around the world. They stood still only to receive a radio message sent by President Nixon, seen on TV sitting in the Oval Room of the White House. He told Armstrong and Aldrin, as Mike Collins orbited overhead in the command module, "Because of what you have done, the heavens have become a part of man's world." Armstrong and Aldrin unveiled a plaque on one of the legs of the lunar module descent stage, which will be left on the moon, stating, "Here men from the planet Earth first set foot upon the moon, July 1969 AD. They came in peace for all mankind." Well, now the astronauts, lively and talkative right up until they re-entered the lunar craft, will eat and sleep, and ground control will be monitoring their probably not dreamless sleep. They should take off from the moon at about the scheduled time, around 6 o'clock this evening.
Thank you, Colin. And it's now exactly 6 minutes past 6. Well, while Colin's been speaking and we had that playback, we have learnt from NASA that the Link Observatory in California has now received already flashback signals from their laser to the laser reflector on the moon. So the first experiment back to Earth has taken place already. At the present moment, Armstrong is still on the moon. Buzz Aldrin, as Colin told you, has gone aboard the lunar module.
It looks like down here. I think my watch stopped, Neil. Hit it.
Well, there we are. First trouble that's happened apparently is that Buzz Aldrin's watch has stopped. Now, Freddie, when they go back in, when they go back into the module, do you think they'll take any sleeping pills, or will they sleep like babies?
One can't predict what they'll do here, but
Okay.
I think probably they might take sleeping pills at this stage.
Stand by a minute. Let me move back.
They've had a great deal of excitement. They will be tired, but nevertheless the whole environment will be strange, in strange positions, and this might be a period when sleeping pills will be justified, and probably a good thing.
Right, easy on the hatch now. Okay, I'll get it the rest of the way. Okay.
Now, Sam, we were talking a little earlier about...
I'll give it to you to go away just a second.
I won't interfere with what's coming over from the moon. We were talking a little earlier about these tektites.
Yes.
Would you like to talk about those a moment, say a little more about them? Because we've got a lot of new listeners have joined us now.
2 hours, 40 minutes
Yes.
on the PLSS.
So that's 1 hour and 40 minutes on the portable life support system so far.
Buzz? Okay, it's unhooked.
Well, and now Sam's actually given me a tektite and put it in my hand, which looks rather like a curious licorice sweet, I must say. What is it?
Well, this is a piece of molten glossy material. You can see light through it actually around the edges.
Oh, yes.
And it's shaped like a button.
I get up there.
And there are thousands of these in various tektitic fields, or fields of tektites. This one comes from Australia, where over 200 miles by 200 miles, many thousands. And there's a field in Borneo, a field in Moldavia. And it's pretty certain that they come, or it's fairly certain, they come from an impact of a very big meteor striking the Earth.
Neil, this is Houston. Did you get the Hasselblad magazine? This is Houston. Did you get the Hasselblad magazine? Yes, I did. And we got about, I'd say 20 pounds of carefully selected, if not documented, samples. Houston, roger. Well done. Out at the second box.
Well, go on about the tektites.
Well, it's probable that when a meteor has come in, the temperature from the shock has been so big that if the meteor has struck...
Official time off the surface at 1:11:37:32.
Strike arch in your back. That's good. Plenty of room. There, I'm right. Arch your back a little, your head's up against the out, roll right just a little bit. Head down. And in good shape. Thank you.
Well, if the meteor has struck...
Now you're clear. You're rubbing up against me a little bit. Okay? Turn right. That's right. Left.
Now, this is Armstrong going aboard.
Yes, indeed.
Okay.
I'd like to just make a correction. The
Move your foot and I'll get the hatch.
time on the portable life support systems was in fact 2 hours and 25 minutes now.
Okay.
Well, if this meteor strikes a region which has got silicates, then the very high temperature will melt these silicates into a glass. I mean, glass is just molten sand in any case. And then what happens is it can be splashed. It's splashed as droplets, about an inch across, molten rock.
Okay.
This solidifies and flying through the air remelts again, forms a button shape.
Forward. the feed water valve.
We'll just listen to NASA for a moment.
And I got your plus antenna suit. Okay, feed water valve closed. And your antenna's out. Okay. What am I bumping into? Okay.
He's guiding him onto the module.
Oh, yeah, snap there, didn't I bite it? Okay. This is Houston, go ahead.
Can you make any sense of this? I know he's giving him instructions
You're
not to
cutting out,
bump.
Neil. You're not readable. I understand you said something about a contingency sample container on the ascent engine.
The problem here is that now they're inside the module and have stowed their
We're not reading you,
antennas.
Neil. Buzz, buzz. This is Houston. Do you read over?
They are having difficulty communicating and will have difficulty until they connect to the umbilicals and use the lunar module communication system.
Tranquility Base. This is Houston. We're reading neither one of you, but standing by.
Yes, that's confirmed by Houston. How long will it take them to connect up their umbilicals now? Is this a minute's job or a long job?
No, but by design it obviously has to be a short reaction task since it is an emergency system. However, it may take them a few minutes to set in the coordinates on the high gain antenna, remembering that they left the module quite some time ago. So we can expect some breakdown in communications for several minutes yet.
So, at the moment we can hear Houston all right, but we can't hear the two astronauts because they've pulled their aerials down and they're back in the module. Until they connect up to the module system, we don't get any communications.
What is quite remarkable is how quickly they were able to put the samples into the lunar module and enter the lunar module. In fact, they were ahead of schedule on that particular part of the operation.
Cabin pressure coming up about 2.789 pounds.
It's now exactly 6:15 here in the Apollo studio.
Do you want me to carry on with my tale about TikToks?
4 psi now.
Well, and now Reg Turner is standing by at Houston. So, Reg, how are things over there?
Nice to you. Well, it has been an incredible night here, of course. I think everybody at this time is really drained of emotion. The only really national moment during the night, I remember, was when Armstrong and Aldrin erected the Stars and Stripes. And in the big auditorium here, where they hold the news conferences and the briefings, they've been projecting the lunar pictures on a big screen. And everybody in there, certainly every American, stood up and clapped. But I think the feeling here is one really of immense satisfaction that all the scientific objectives have been very much achieved. The solar wind panel is being brought back. The laser experiment, as you've heard and reported, is already well in use. I'm not quite certain how many, what the weight of the lunar rocks is yet. That seems to be a little obscure, whether they managed to finish getting those. But I think there is little doubt that America has won the race to the moon in a very big way. Russia's attempt to, if it was an attempt to grab some samples, doesn't look as if it can possibly beat America now. We may easily see ourselves in the most exciting position, if Russia has got any samples, of seeing a race back to Earth with the samples. But whether the Russians do, even now, succeed in getting samples back, first, I think the feeling here is that the 10,000 million pounds the American moon rocks have cost has been well spent, because I think in this one night, with the whole world looking on, America has gained a good 10,000 million pounds worth of prestige.
Well, thank you, Reg, and I might say our 4 scientists here are as happy as those in Houston, and we've converted at least one to the idea of sending men to the moon. He believed in robots until 4 hours ago. Completely converted.
Correction, you converted 2.
I was doubtful.
Oh, we've got 2.
I wasn't completely uncertain, but I was doubtful.
So there you are. This is a full justification for the system. One thing I'd like to ask you now, Eric. We've been throwing questions at you of all kinds, and you batted them all back marvellously. How do you know so much about